for Dialogue Conspiracy with Mae Brussell. For the past 14 years, Mae has been researching and uncovering facts and evidence from between the lines of the news and placing them in a more thorough perspective of how conspiracy, political assassination, and abuses of power affect us all. Dialogue Conspiracy originates with KLRB-FM in Carmel, California. And now, Mae Brussell.
Good evening. This is Mae Brussell in Carmel, California. I hear an echo here on the program, but there's something wrong in the control room. I can't figure out what yet. Maybe Joe come in and help us about this. It's January the 22nd, 1978, and it's Dialogue Conspiracy number 305. Do you hear the echo here? It's a conspiracy. Okay, it's out. We've solved the problem. Nigel's helped me along here, and I think we're on our way. Several news stations have been taking Dialogue Conspiracy and are getting the tape cassettes, and there's a college in the north and one in the east. And once in a while, when a news station begins to take this program, I have to explain or backtrack on some of the names and give a little background on the program. If I move along too fast and you're not familiar with this information, be patient and take it each week as it comes, and you can fill in with the back tapes going almost a year into March 77 if you want them. I'll give you the list of information of books that are available if you write to me to my home address box. It's Route 2 in Carmel, 25620 Via Crotalo, Crotalo, Carmel 93923. I can send you a list of the past programs of Dialogue Conspiracy up through March 77. I have the tapes going back 6.5 years, but they're not available. I haven't put them all on cassettes. And there is one college in the north that's playing these programs twice a week in the morning and evening. And as you listen to them, if you have any questions, just send me a self-addressed envelope, and I'll try to answer your questions. Or you can telephone me in the evenings. The area code's 408, and I'm listed in the Carmel Monterey telephone book, the only Brussels in the telephone book. If some of this material isn't familiar to you and you want more information about it, I can tell you where to get books on the conspiracies. You can send a self-addressed envelope and 25 cents to Box 1107 Capitola in Capitola, California, and get a bibliography, a list of the current books that are available that I refer to. This is the source of my books on Dialogue Conspiracy in my library, and you can write there and get some books if you want to get into the act of investigating, becoming an investigator yourself, or following up with some of the facts that I give you on the program. And you can, as I say, get tapes of the past shows, or you can telephone me, or you can write if you send your self-addressed stamped envelope. I don't have time to follow all these and write them out, and that's why I say address it to yourself and save me the time. Of course, the overriding theme all the time is that this government is run by conspiracy, and when you pile up the list of books that have been published in the past and in the present and future ones that are ready to roll out according to book catalogs, you can see that more and more people are becoming conscious of the conspiracies. And I want to go into this matter with you, a conspiracy newsletter that's published in Michigan, and maybe you can order some information from this party, Mr. MC Alpine, who has a conspiracy digest. The area of the conspiracy that I'm concerned with is the one that involves political assassinations or imprisonment of people who affect our social culture through the act of murder. When their murder takes place, the social climate takes place. I'm interested in the killing of the president or past presidents, senators, candidates for presidency, and cultural events such as killing rock musicians, legal murders such as killing deciding lawyers in cases, or members of the Congress or judges and civil rights leaders, and then prisoners that are killed such as George Jackson, and also men that are locked up in prison, and guards are killed in order to keep the men locked up, such as Hugo Pinnell, and a whole long list of black prisoners that are locked up because of their involvement in civil rights struggle through the 60s, and they were put on false murder charges and are now being considered under Amnesty International as part of American political prisoners. I'm interested in the way the news media covers up these murders and the way the medical profession participates in the murders. And it's that area that I really am concentrating on. There are many, many people working on the economic conspiracy, the gold conspiracy, and the health, the weather manipulation. Of course, I'm interested in the mind control because it affects the alleged assassins who can be used for certain acts in the murdering, and then their memories erased. The process of mind control to use patsies for jobs and then erase all memory of what happened after the crime was committed. I'm interested in the police systems and in the court systems and the facets of the conspiracies that are used to keep these assassinations going and to keep them covered up. And that is the overriding theme for some of you, as I say, that are new listeners to radio stations that are getting the tape cassettes and wonder why so many different subjects are covered every week. There is a theme, an overriding theme that connects these, and you can't connect them all in a half hour. It's impossible, but the overriding theme is these conspiracies. Last week I talked about the power control group, the conspiracy within the research element. That's another branch of this problem, is that there are some people trying to find out if the Defense Industry Security Command, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the CIA, the FBI, are involved in these assassinations and murders. And then there are researchers that are part of this power control group, and I went into them at length last week on Dialogue Conspiracy. One of the researchers that I didn't mention on Dialogue Conspiracy was Sylvia Marr. She's a woman that wrote Accessories After the Fact, after John Kennedy was killed, and she's been looked up to as a source of information. Sylvia has come out recently in a newsletter of Penn Jones and bragged about the fact that she encouraged Tom Bethel, a man that was working for District Attorney Jim Garrison in New Orleans, to give information to the lawyers of Clay Shaw, to betray his own employer for the sake of Clay Shaw, who admittedly was in the CIA and worked for the CIA, and she's very proud of the fact that she told Bethel to do this. And Jim Garrison, I believe, has a legal case in terms of Bethel passing these documents on. He did sue him for hampering his investigation and trial of Clay Shaw. And now Sylvia Marr has come out and publicly said, yes, I encouraged Bethel to do this, and I'm proud of it. She also, as a member of the Power Control Group, published an index of the Warren Commission witnesses, and names were mentioned in the 26 volumes, and left out approximately 20 important names, 25 important names that would lead the John Kennedy assassination to the place where it should be investigated. She left out names I've had on Dialogue Conspiracy before in her index, like Robert Morris, Colonel Orloff, and Warren Carroll of the CIA, and Clyde Moore, Howard Hughes, and Lockheed. And there's a list of 20 or 30 names that she left out. They just can't be coincidental. And again, if you want that list of names that are left out of Sylvia Marr's index that leads to the Young Americans for Freedom and the William Buckley family and E. Howard Hunt and the House Internal Security Committee that started Richard Nixon on his fame because of prosecuting Alger Hiss. Robert Morris was one of the investigators for that House subcommittee. These names were left out of an index by somebody who was supposed to be compiling a complete list of names, and the most important names were left out of the index. I also was talking about Mark Lane and Dick Gregory and the cover-up that Krasner has agreed to do for Hustler. And this week I got a newsletter from a Jim Horowitz, who has a news service in Los Angeles, and he writes about Mark Lane. He said, Mark Lane, the attorney for James Earl Ray, has been meeting quietly with representatives of columnist Jack Anderson in Los Angeles. They are planning a doubleheader for Jack Anderson's first big syndicated TV special. With Mark Lane's help, Jack Anderson's guest will be Robert Lee Vesco and James Earl Ray. Well, Jack Anderson has been putting down the assassination conspiracy buffs and any evidence of conspiracy for the 14 years. He's worked with Frank Sturgis, alias Frank Fiorina, whose name comes up all the time in regards to the Kennedy assassination and the FBI report interview they had with him as soon as John Kennedy was killed, and he was arrested at the Watergate Hotel. Anderson is a devout Mormon business partner of Madame Chenault, heads the Flying Tigers, listed in books on such as the politics of heroin in Southeast Asia, responsible for narcotics traffic in Southeast Asia. And of course, world-renowned Vesco is linked to narcotic traffic all over the world. This are not only my allegations, but Frank Peroff testified at the Senate hearings on narcotics. I have the bound volumes of his hearings that there were links of Vesco to Montreal and members of Richard Nixon's family and the Marseille heroin connection. So the role of Mark Lane, the enigma wrapped in a puzzle or a question, becomes more clear every week. And when I see that he's assisting Jack Anderson to launch his nationwide show with his client, James Earl Ray, who had said he was doing narcotic dealing the year and a half that he was out of the Missouri Penitentiary until he was located in the Lorraine Motel. And he did work out of Montreal and down to Mexico and all over the United States for a very nice time until, as I say, Martin Luther King was killed. Now we find that the attorney for James Earl Ray not only is Mark Lane, but Mark is assisting in this television program for Jack Anderson, which is very, very strange, and we'll follow more about that as time goes on. The FBI candidate has been named by Jimmy Carter. It's William H. Webster. It doesn't surprise me that he named Mr. Webster. We don't know much about him. There was an article in the Los Angeles Times that said that he belonged to the Veiled Prophet Society. That's one of the few things I have to see to feel very good about James Webster, the new head of the FBI. The Veiled Prophet Society, according to the Los Angeles Times, is a 100-year-old organization of the city's wealthiest and well-connected, and they annually hold a debutante ball and a parade. Now, I'm sure that this organization of 1,000 white males, this exclusive organization, is not just to hold a debutante parade, because they're all white males in this society called the Veiled Prophet. But the group is compared, according to Mr. Webster, to an like the organizations that put on the New Orleans Mardi Gras. And of course, that reminds me of Clay Shaw, the defendant in the trial that Jim Garrison had in New Orleans, naming Clay Shaw as a member of the assassination team that planned John Kennedy's assassination. And when he was arrested, they took out all kinds of masochistic whips and chains and garments, black capes and so forth, that were pretty scary just on the surface. And his excuse for this kind of outfit was that he's one of the leaders putting on the New Orleans Mardi Gras. Clay Shaw has been, as I say, a member of the CIA, and the Mardi Gras has nothing to do with the CIA. But I just wonder if anybody's ever going to ask the questions. They never ask the right questions. What the Veiled Prophet Society is, and is there any link of the Veiled Prophet Society to the Hooded Ones or the Ku Klux Klan or the Secret Army organization in France or similar organizations? The Veiled Prophet Society is only described simply as 1,000 white male members, so it's really weird that they put on a debutante ball. Another thing about Mr. Webster is that he grew up and went to Amster College in Amsterdam, Massachusetts on a scholarship, and became a very good friend of Stansfield Turner, a fellow student who later became an admiral in the Navy and is now director of the CIA. Stansfield Turner and L. Patrick Gray, who was nominated as the head of the FBI by Richard Nixon and then forced to resign or was kicked out because of his concealing the conspiracy of Watergate for both the CIA and the FBI, is a classmate, class of 57, along with Jimmy Carter and Stansfield Turner. So we have a very cozy relationship with Jimmy Carter, President of the United States, and his pal and classmate Stansfield Turner, director of the CIA. And now they have their buddy, Mr. Webster from the FBI, and they can coordinate what the Tom Charles Houston plan wanted to do in 1971 that J. Edgar Hoover didn't want to do, and that is combine the military with the CIA and the FBI. The Los Angeles Times and the Associated Press went on to say that Mr. Webster was a U.S. attorney from 1959 to 1961. Of course, he was appointed to the bench by Richard Nixon, but he represented the Mobil Oil Corporation in a price-fixing suit. And, of course, Mobil is owned by the Rockefeller family, so you have a judge who was President Nixon's appointee on the bench in 1971, just at a time when Nixon was getting together the Tom Charles Houston plan in the White House, who now becomes the head of the FBI with the CIA classmate Stansfield Turner and the president from Annapolis in the White House. And you have a very cozy group because Jimmy Carter was selected for the presidency by David Rockefeller and the Trilateral Commission, and this judge that was appointed by Richard Nixon, Mr. Webster, represented Mobil Oil Corporation. So you see a very cozy trio there that tells us we haven't come very far since Watergate. Nothing has changed, really. I think it's only getting worse. There was another article I just briefly want to mention in last Monday's paper. It was about a meeting of a family, Bob and Golden Bristol, who came all the way from Michigan to San Luis Obispo to meet Michael Keyes. Monterey Herald paper said that they came 2,000 miles to meet Mr. Keyes, and they said, in quotes, "We love this special person from the bottom of our hearts." They loved Mr. Keyes because he had murdered and raped their daughter in San Diego. Their daughter Diane was knifed and raped and murdered, and they carried their Christian Bible into San Luis Obispo and said, in quotes, "We harbor no hatred and no revenge, and Christ has brought us together for this forgiveness." But another Associated Press story had a different version. They had this, and they included not only a picture of Mr. and Mrs. Bristol carrying their little Bible all the way from Dearborn, Michigan, but it says the special service, the religious service, to show their Christianity and forgiveness, was set up by Charles Tex Watson. Of course, Charles Tex Watson did all the murders for the Manson family. He killed the LaBiancas, and he killed pregnant Sharon Tate because Sue Atkins and the others couldn't quite stab her. She was pregnant and pleading for her baby, and he murdered the 5 people in Sharon Tate's home, and the next night murdered the 2 people in the LaBianca home. It's interesting that Charles Watson is now a chaplain at the prison in San Luis Obispo and is bringing in the Christianity, because the Charles Watson whole story and the Manson was to increase the race war, and they were devout Christians in the sense that they were anti-Jewish. They wore swastikas on their foreheads. They were Nazis, and they punished the women if they slept with a black person or anyone of black blood or Jewish blood, and they were very certain of their Nazi white Aryan links. And again, their Christianity, as opposed to, say, Jewish forgiveness, shows up in this family. Made their trip 2,000 miles, pushing Christianity and forgiveness, and Charles Watson set that meeting up. Another news article this last week you might not have seen. You know that William Sullivan of Division 5 of the FBI, probably the most important link of the CIA and the FBI to the Kennedy assassination, was murdered this last winter, November the 9th. And I know you'll all feel very badly, but the man who killed him in this hunting accident has had his hunting license revoked for 10 years. He won't be able to hunt for 10 years because he mistook Mr. Sullivan for a deer. Mr. Sullivan was wearing a brown hat and a white turtleneck shirt and a red and black hunting shirt. And Daniels, the son of a policeman, a state police officer, shot William Sullivan, and so he won't be able to go hunting for 10 years. I know, as I said, you can feel really badly about that. For those of you that collect information on conspiracies, I have an article from Stag magazine that was sent to me that's very important. It's December 77, volume 28, number 12, and it's page 28. It's on Interpol. I refer to the Rockefeller Nazi J. Edgar Hoover links to Interpol, and there are links of J. Edgar Hoover, G. Gordon Liddy, Gerald Ford, Richard Nixon. I don't want to go in the whole article today, but you can get that. It's called Interpol, More Ruthless Than the CIA. Well, being as this is set up by the pure-blooded Nazis, and the CIA still isn't goose-stepping or marching with the armbands, read about Interpol, get that. It's Stag magazine, New York City. You can get a hold of an old copy and write for the new this issue by Josh Logan. Interpol, More Ruthless Than the Nazis. I may go into it sometime, but not this evening. And I also want to tell you, I do have the booklets on the Buckley family that you can order now. They're $2. If possible, send an envelope addressed again. Otherwise, I'll send it out to you. This is put out by the National Labor Caucus, but it's really, really important, and I think you should have it. Just like some of you have ordered the Torbett document, and I've sent out about 90 copies of the Gemstone file. This is the background of the William Buckley family in espionage in Mexico, the setup of the brothers and sisters, the links to the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and the importance of this is that William Buckley and E. Howard Hunt worked in the CIA and worked with the assassination teams and Robert Mayu, and it goes into the origin of the Buckley family, the father, and I will do some details on it, but you can order it in advance. I have about 10 minutes left, and I'm going to give you the address of a conspiracy digest that is terribly important, and I would wish I could do hours on this particular digest. There's a man called MC Alpine, Alpine, who has been getting out a conspiracy digest. It's a short newsletter for 8 or 10 pages, and he's been getting out quite a while. He has a bachelor's and master's degree in mechanical engineering, and for 10 years, he describes himself as having progressively shifted his energy away from his original vocation, that he was studying in engineering, towards the neglected science of economics, human liberty, and political intrigue. He has concluded that until the great issues of money and power are resolved, technical and material efforts are little more than futile to alleviate the human condition. He asked me, Mr. McAlpine, to write for his Conspiracy Digest, and I will have an article coming out pretty soon, in another month or two. He breaks it into seasons. The fall of 77, which is late in coming out, is $4.95, and you can write to him and order this. That issue includes an article by John Judge, Why Was Dan Rather in Dealey Plaza, an interview with Mae Brussell, the radical assassination and conspiracy researcher, and another section there, The State of Research on the Power Elite by Anthony Sutton. He wrote me some very challenging questions, and they're very important questions, and he's going to put them into his Conspiracy Digest, and I'm really glad to answer it because a lot of people want to know where my head is at politically, how I vote, what do I think about conspiracies, how important they are, and this gives you a lot of background, and you can order it from him. As I say, it's $4.95 for that section, the fall of 77, which is late in coming out. You can order that from him, and I'll give you the address of his digest. It's Box 766, Dearborn, Michigan. The zip code is 48121. And he has some information about this digest, and this is what he says. For many years, a real need has existed for a publication that objectively summarizes the latest facts and theories of history. To even begin to grasp the overall picture, the serious student has to subscribe to literally dozens of periodicals, each with its own distorting ideological bias, and go through hundreds of books. There are advanced students of conspiracy and intrigue who soon become weary of wading through propagandistic or simplistic introductory verbiage, and they are looking for a cost and time effective way to keep abreast of the latest intelligence concerning the machinations of the international ruling conspiracy. Alpine Enterprise is filling the conspiracy information gap with their new publication called Conspiracy Digest. He's enlarging it. It's $15 for 1 year. That's Box 766, Dearborn, Michigan. Or you can order them in segments of $4.95. Each issue is crammed with objective summaries gleaned from a wide range of periodicals and books, both from contemporary and little-known writings of the past. The sources are chosen from the establishment as well as the right and left. And this is true. I've seen some copies of his digest, and they really are good. He said the sources for each article are fully identified, the names and addresses required for detailed follow-up. This digest will serve you as a handbook and a directory for aspiring conspiracy experts, as well as providing a time-saving summary of diverse and studied sources. He wants to reach those people that he calls a small, elite, sophisticated, advanced students. The digest has no rehash of well-known or elementary conspiracy theories. He goes into the most current and the oldest books, and he has a list of books available. I added it up, and unfortunately, I don't have the $2,000 to buy the old books that he has advertised here, because if I bought them, I would really round out my library, and maybe it's a goal to have. He has a section here on the Bolshevik Revolution collection, Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution. He has 4 or 5 books in there, the old books that range for $100. There's another section on cycles of war, what caused World War I and what caused World War II. He has a large selection on the Rockefeller collection. That would be $161 for these books. But he has the list of the books, a section on the rich and the super rich, another on the oil collection, one on the Rothschild collection, the Colonel House collection, and he's listed them into subjects, and he's collected all these invaluable books. They're old. Some of them are old and they're hard to get, and he has them all broken down into categories, and you can write for his list and order his books. You don't have to take the whole digest, but you can order his books. He has an order form, and there's many, many books that are really good. I could just list them all for you. He does have the Buckley family, the paper that I have advertised. It's $5 here, and these are available. I have reprints here for $2 for you, but he's got such things as the Senior Lindbergh paperback reprint collection going back years to father of Charles Lindbergh and his political stance, and how Charles Lindbergh became the person that worked with the Nazis, and things that we didn't know about Charles Lindbergh just because he flew across the Atlantic. He became our instant hero. He breaks down history into very sensible World War II, the conspiracies, and the World War I, the international banking collection. As I say, you can get these individually. You can get the conspiracy digest from him in seasonal, $4.95 each, 4 sections a year, or you can get the $15 subscription for the whole year, or you send him $2 and get this newspaper. It's like a 6-page newspaper with a rundown of all these books, these many, many books on conspiracies. He has one book, The Most Powerful Man in the World, The Life of Sir Henry de Turding. His copies are $75. You may be able to get them for less. And one thing that's very interesting is that the books that he talks about and the prices that he has, these books are going up. And I know that there's very valuable books such as The Merchants of Death, Der Fuhrer, The Great Conspiracy by Michael Sayers. There's a group of books in my library, and other people have that I know. And these things are very, very valuable. They are the answer to the present problems, and the prices are just jumping. It could become even a good investment if you have money for some of these books, because a lot of them are being bought up or taken out of print. And so I suggest that you get this. He calls it a tabloid catalog for independent thinkers. This is only 25 cents. Alpine Enterprises, P.O. Box 766, Dearborn, Michigan. And you can get all the information about his past publications, the books that are available, the old books that are available, the people who are writing about conspiracies, the index of the future articles, the provocative questions he has. When I talk on Dialogue Conspiracy, there isn't much you can do in 1/2 hour, but you can have these resources in your hands, and when something comes up, or you have a little extra money, or once a month, or once every 3 months you want to invest, you yourselves can buy the supporting information so that you become knowledgeable. As I say, he says, Mr. Alpine says, that the great issues of who has the money and who controls the power have to be resolved before we can go forward. Our technology won't help us. Our material efforts are futile. People aren't happier. They aren't better off. They're going bankrupt. He writes about the gold conspiracy. He has these books, the money conspiracies. And in order to help the human condition, you have to understand the manipulators. And I agree with him. And as I say, I did write an article for him. It was about 20 pages. It was hard. He asked me hard questions, and I tried to give simple answers because I like to reduce it down to the most understandable expressions. I'm not very complex or complicated. I see these things, these murders, as pretty cut and dry, and I think I understand who is behind the wheels. I've read many, many books, hundreds and hundreds, on the assassinations and conspiracies, and he has 1,000 more I could add to my library if I could afford them. And then you get a really complete picture of who is manipulating us, whether it's our property taxes or our swine flu vaccines or our genetic future or the taking away the gold. And once you understand the team players by just reading 3 or 4 books, then you understand the rules of the game. Well, you can order this from him. I really suggest that you should. And if you want these books on the Buckley family, you can write to me and then hopefully next week we can get into the subject of the Buckley family. This is Mae Brussell in Carmel, California, and I'll see you next week on Dialogue Conspiracy.
You've been listening to Dialogue Conspiracy with Mae Brussell.